And it's a funny thing because when Eric came here, he was just freshly 18 years of old, and he was working on multiplayer ever since he was like 14 or something, totally underage. And
I started modding when I was 12, I think.
when he reached the age of 18, he told his parents, "I'm leaving school, no questions. Like, I'm leaving school. That's it. I've decided on my career. I'll be working on games." And he will be working, I guess, on games forever. Not necessarily our games only. I think he would be a good game creator on his own, like on a small team. But when he was in the situation, when he left school, and he was obviously very much attached to what we are working on, I approached him just like we approached Martin. Do you think it may be a possible idea that you would come to work for SCS? And he said, yes, let's do it. So ever since then, we have him here for like 2 years already or so.
So there are at least 3 people from community. 50 Martin,
50 this guy, Nikolai. Well, but it depends. Like Patrick, one of the guys doing the tour, has been with the company for almost 10 years. But when he started working for us remotely, he was 16, and he was also from the community because until then he was building a map of Slovakia, like 1-to-1 scale map of Slovakia. So some people here in the team also started as modders here local in Czech Republic, but started got professional about it working for us. So it's not like the slides are. It's not like binary, modder or not modder. It's some people have worked with the game to some extent before. Sorry, it's my wife. And I have
No problem.
Oh, ciao.
Yeah, if you come from the modern community, you can have a deeper knowledge of the game than like most of the other communities, because you have to deal with more aspects. If you, for instance, do map modding, you also have to work with the definition file, demons, and that sort of stuff. And most of the mapping team doesn't have to deal with it because they can delegate it to other people, like for instance, asset creators and that sort of stuff. But if you are from the modding community, you are pretty much reliant on what you can do on your own. So
I think teams like Promos work differently in a like ownership sense. I guess when you are a part of Promos, I guess you have the sector or 2 or 5. That's your responsibility. That you have kind of chosen that I will be working on Lithuania or something, and it's your own responsibility. Whether you create the buildings, steal the buildings, have somebody build it for you, it's your problem, I guess. Here we have a lot of specialization. So we have people dedicated to buildings, people dedicated to trees, people dedicated to, I don't know, sky or something. Recently we created such role, and you depend on these people.
sky texture, so
we have to revisit finally the weather and skies and do something about it.
A lot of people have been asking for this.
But the trouble is we can do it now in current engine limitations and setup, and then pay the price for it. Once in the future we finally finish some work on the engine, it will have to be recreated and done at least equally or better in some sense.
So you're just not wasting your time.
We are kind of waiting the option. Should we waste the time? But for a year, the game would pop up in better quality. But then when we finally change the engine, it will take way more time again to catch up to convert everything to the new setup. So we'll probably do a little bit to make it richer, to get the experience richer, but to get it really like revolutionary better, we have to wait for some new engine features, like really supporting a real HDR or doing better stuff about light computation.
But it's all already a work in progress.
It's always been. I mean, we have close to 20 programmers here in the company who are busy working on stuff. It's just that many of these kind of internal projects take years to complete, and at the same time, we live with this situation where the game has to be constantly updated. We have this commitment that we will update the game, we will improve the game, but doing something totally new is very difficult if you at the same time have to make sure that what you have doesn't break down, doesn't break internally, doesn't break too much for the modding teams. Sometimes we do break things a little here and there and try to explain how to fix things, But it's a
So
big
far it's been
limitation.
quite
It's
easy.
very limiting. You know, maybe you think it's easy. Maybe for modders it's not overly difficult, but for the programmers here, it's very difficult to make sure that things don't get break totally. Because if we break things totally, if the guys play pro mods for 2 years, have their save game file with I don't know how many drivers and everything, and we just tell them, sorry, your save game file is gone, start from scratch, these people will just be so frustrated, so upset that they will stop playing the game maybe. So we cannot really do that ever.
The modders would quit their.
Yeah, so we have to find means, and it's really limiting our like innovation options to some extent, how to survive the transition step by step, piece by piece, to make a whole new engine and whole new everything. So mods are great, at the same time they are a problem for the programming team to work around to have them survive.
Yeah, but one thing that also often pops up in forums is like, yeah, why don't you convert this to DirectX 11 and that sort of stuff. But convert it to a new graphics engine like DirectX 11 or even Vulkan is not easy. It's you basically have to rebuild the whole graphics engine from the ground up again, and that will take a lot of time. And that's why has not really happened yet, because it's really complex to do so.
We will, like, I've been talking about DirectX 11 3 years ago somewhere in Poland at some conference. We'll have DirectX 11 very soon. Didn't happen that way because we took different paths towards the goal. Internally in the engine we have to change many underlying systems to be ready to feed the data into the graphics card differently, or different order, different organization. DirectX 11 will be the next kind of stop on the path towards even better graphics, and it will be soon, within a year or so. But then we'll need to do another massive change for us to support Vulkan or DirectX 12 kind of level graphics. But still, people confuse, this is just an API, DirectX 8, 9, 10, whatever, it's just a language to talk to the graphics card. Ultimately, you can do more with the more modern language, but that language is not kind of saving the world somehow magically by making everything shinier. You have to make the effects work, whether it's version 11 or version 12 or version 9. So it's not like we switch to the new API and suddenly everything looks nicer. It's about giving them tools to the map guys, asset guys, to tweak everything to better quality. So once we get to the new API, people will say, oh, SCS is DirectX 11, but in practice we'll have another year or so of work ahead of these guys to retouch every model, every piece of the world, and
to make use
make
of
it better for the new API. So a lot of work ahead of us. This section is like what we call truck experience team. You see the steering wheel. This is a mix of testers and programmers and designers, making sure that the vehicle behaves correctly on the road, the steering, the brakes, the suspension, the work of the internal dashboard stuff. So this is testing and vehicle development, physics, this kind of stuff.
Schön. Entschuldige. Schon ein bisschen extravagant werden. Top, top. Wie wird gut? Ah, kostet mehr. Ja.
I guess you've noticed along the roads that we have these many meeting rooms or kind of phone booths for people to have a little bit of privacy when their wife calls. This is the sound engineer room. Very well sound insulated area again with sound absorbing and sound insulating material. Here I was instructed how to use this thing, which is demonstrating. You can demonstrating the use. But somebody, I think, like somebody killed the sound or something. is like simulation tool for tweaking the engine sounds. These layers, these tracks, represent the different parts of the powertrain, the turbo, and the engine itself, and whatever. And here, as I manipulate this little slider, it's like if I'm pressing the gas pedal. And this is actually not real truck sound. This is already a combination of the original truck sounds combined for the use in the engine.
Tool, or you programmed it yourself for your needs?
Actually, what you're seeing here is an equivalent of our own internal tool that we have used for some years, but this is actually, I believe, from FUMOD. We are switching our sound engine system, the middleware that we use from our own stuff that we've used for a decade, into FUMOD. FMOD is professional software for game engines. They are themselves middleware company. So we are now talking to them about using their technology for our game to make it easier for us to work with sounds, to get better support for streaming radios. There's a lot of benefits from using somebody else's middleware if it's stable and very, very well developed. So the thinking is now, and we are presenting it on their tool already, that we will convert the sounds in the game to use this FMOD middleware.
Can expect improvements on sounds in the game?
I think the ultimately the improvement would be more flexibility for this guy working here to tweak the engine easier without much of need of programmers, as is currently the state. And also probably the community would be, for them it would be easier to set up their own sound banks and create their own truck or vehicle sound experiences. Technology-wise, it's still doing the same that we are doing already. It's just that it's more robust and stable, and it's some like difficult areas already addressed. And also, ultimately, what they do and do it very well is that with them we could alter the sound when you go through a tunnel. It sounds different, of course, with the echo. If you go through different environments, so they just have filters already for that developed that we could just.
So it will be implemented in games.
At some point in time, we'll have better sound. I can claim this about many things.
Well, at least we've seen it with our eyes that it's actually worked on, and it's already something. And during licensing talks, do manufacturers listen to the game, or
I don't think so. Most often they don't even see anything running. They just see a few pictures and they just believe our story or not. Because for them, running a gaming computer is something like just what kids do. So, guys, if you'd be so kind, I have another group of friendly fan community, people from abroad that you can take over and have fun together with the motion seats in VR. Okay?
Right?
Hello.
Want to try? Anybody?
let me say goodbye for you for now.
Thank you.
I'm still around. If you will be just chatting here in the reception, probably we'll bump into each other. As I told Eugene, if we took all the way to come here, just don't feel the need to be kicked out immediately. Okay, so it was a pleasure.